Nissan, that's a piece of junk.
All right, who are you?
Brandon Dills with Jarhead Diagnostics and Small Town Automotive Technologies.
Very cool. Who are you?
I'm Johnathan White with Dills Auto Service in
Hey,
Colorado.
Hey, you got to turn on his mic.
That helps. Say it again.
I'm Johnathan White with Dills Auto Service in Greeley, Colorado.
Very
And who in the what now? Talk slow. I'm
Johnathan White with Phil's Pro Auto Service in Greeley, Colorado.
David has a terrible case of ADD. I'm just going to warn you ahead of time.
I process things very slowly, very slowly.
And then he talks about them for 25 to 30 minutes each time. So
What things I just processed?
I think it takes you 30 minutes to process it, so you just continue to talk.
I have my Audible set to 1.25. I can't go back to like regular 1.0 speed. They just talk too slow, and I get distracted. It's bad.
Do you keep a shiny object in your room at all times?
There's always shiny objects. There's always something to distract you. Yeah.
It's bad, man. It's bad. And like, if you actually intend, if you're riding with David, there is a key. You need to start prepping him to get ready to go 2 hours before he needs to leave. And you have to like make it very evident that he needs to be here at a specific time. Right? We were supposed to be at dinner at 6 o'clock last night, and he's like at 5:50.
What do you know? Get out of here. We got there on time.
We did, by the grace of God. By the grace
You
of
have to
God.
do
The parking was what messed us up because the place was packed.
You have to do what we did to my aunt. So she was always like that. So if we wanted dinner at 2, we would tell her dinner was at 1, so that way
Yeah.
she'd show up at 2.
Yeah, we do that with my mother-in-law.
Y'all, that is awesome. But I'm gonna start making reservations. I just want you to know.
Just tell them it's at 5, then you get there on time.
That's it.
Yeah.
That's exactly
Try
right.
not to be an hour late.
Usually just 15.
Yeah,
minutes,
15
maybe
minutes.
30.
Yeah, but
Maybe
if
30.
you do the hour, then you got time to talk in between. So, and you do that a lot.
Talk?
Yeah.
No.
He just chimes in and goes on tangents.
Tangents.
Yeah,
Thank
That's
you.
exactly
Thank you.
right. That's exactly right.
That's all I'm saying.
So, it's your first. Is it your first time at Vision?
First time at Vision. Was
Wait.
supposed to be here in 2020, and
Right.
then wife said no. She works in healthcare,
Right.
and world blew up. And then I was there virtually last year for
Okay.
the virtual, but this is the first time in person.
Nice. Nice. So, what do you think so far?
It's big.
It is. It is.
Yeah, I'm in the A hall right now for one of my classes.
Right. What class is it?
It's the management class with Greg Bunch.
Very cool. Very cool. What do you think so far?
It's good. Yeah.
Very cool. Awesome. Now, what's your role in the shop?
I'm the service manager.
Okay.
So, production manager basically is my job title. So I take all the tickets, make sure they're dispatched correctly, go
Okay.
to the techs, help with fires,
Right.
get parts, make sure parts are correct. I build all the estimates except on waiter tickets.
Okay.
So everything's priced the same all
Got
the
it.
time.
Right. So, do you have somebody? So, there's an advisor outside of you that sells the work. You just build the estimate.
Correct.
I've seen a couple people do that. That's a really unique way of doing it. Right. And Todd.
Why is that
Compton-
unique?
Well, for me, they're building the estimate and selling the work.
Yeah.
Todd Compton does the same thing. He's got somebody who just builds the estimate, and then that estimate goes up front, and the guy sells it.
Yeah.
And so, I just think it's unique for us. I like them to write the ticket. There's nothing wrong with doing it that way. I just thought it was cool.
That makes sense. The way you guys have it set up makes sense. An expediter,
Right.
like at a restaurant.
Exactly.
Somebody's pushing tickets out. 'Cause that's what I do essentially. If I'm at the shop,
That's pretty rare.
How-
is you're ordering parts and you're trying to push things through the shop
Right.
as quickly as possible. But I'm not answering phone calls and I'm not talking to the customers.
Yeah, the only phone calls I do is talk to parts companies,
Vendors,
and
yeah.
vendors
Right.
when
Yeah.
there's an issue, parts didn't arrive, it's boxed wrong, it's whatever.
So how many techs at your shop?
We have 5 techs.
5 techs. So I need one more tech and then I can get an expediter. Is what you're saying.
Hey, listen, he's offering you a job. I would definitely say no if I were you. So, Brandon, you've just kind of started a shop.
Hold on. How many advisors?
2.
Okay. Wow, that's a lot of people. I've got really slow techs. I don't think that would work.
But the real question is it done with Care Auto or
What are you saying? Look, I got the shirt.
I know.
I'm
Done with
repping.
care.
I'm
Done
repping.
with
Done.
auto.
Yeah.
It's done with
Done
auto.
with
That's
auto.
what I get told. Done with auto. I
Yeah.
am. Yes. Thank you.
Yes.
No, that's not the name of the business.
The benefit to it is like when you have a parts issue or something that came up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You have your techs go up to the advisor, they message the advisor, and the advisor's taking a phone call and has someone up front. They're
Yeah.
busy, and
Yeah,
then
absolutely.
it gets forgotten.
Sure.
And you have that tech waiting and waiting. And maybe you have techs with 2 bays and they'll work on the other car in the other bay.
Right.
If you have that advantage. But if you don't, you have a tech just standing there waiting for the phone call to end or
No,
whatever.
it absolutely 100% makes perfect sense. That would, in my mind, be ideal. It's very close to what we do now at our shop, and it would just, we would just add that extra person so there would be actually somebody there on a consistent basis, not just coming and going as they please.
Yeah, and I agree with that. That was something I'd kind of considered when I moved, is that it would be a good fit because we were having so much more space. And the problem right now is that it overloads the advisors. They forget stuff.
Yeah. Oh
And-
yeah. Forgot to order the part.
Yeah.
Didn't get it. Nobody
Absolutely.
checked the part to see if it was correct.
Yeah.
All of a sudden, you're having to wait. Yeah, that makes. I'm almost like maybe I shouldn't get a second advisor. I should get an expediter. But so you're a manager, but do people report to you directly? Like you have
Yep.
to deal with
Yeah, so
time off and
I have a shop-
performance issues. And
Yeah, I have a shop foreman, and he handles the technician side of if there's a diagnostic issue or anything like that.
Right.
If there's a personnel problem, that becomes my
so you're
my
HR.
house. Yeah,
Yeah.
basically, I oversee the front end and the back end to
Okay.
an extent beyond the technical side. The technical side goes to my shop foreman. If they have a issue they can't figure out, they go to him.
Now this is shop foreman actually.
Wrench.
Yeah.
Yes. He's
Okay.
he's hourly based. And he doesn't get any jobs that are waiting or anything. He's my
Doesn't do oil changes. In other
correct.
words. Yeah.
Yeah, he doesn't do anything like that. So he can always be pulled away if he
Yeah.
has to. And if something's way over another technician's head, say we took in something we thought was going to be super easy and it's not, then he
Can jump in.
He can jump in and get involved with it
That's
if he
pretty
has
cool.
to.
That's a good
that is
setup.
setup for
That is
sure.
a good setup.
And it's something I'm definitely thinking about when we move. Now, tell us about how you got to where you're at right now. Like, where did you come from? How did you get started in this? Tell us the story.
So the shop I work at is my dad's shop.
Mhm.
I grew up with it. I've basically been around it my entire life.
Okay.
Went to school at CSU, and the economy went to shit and everything. And my dad needed help at the shop, and so I went back to working with him, and I kind of never left.
Right. And so tell me, do you enjoy it? Right. It sounds like you had other plans.
Yeah, well, when you're a kid and you get drugged to the shop every weekend to do stuff during the summer, like
Right.
it's not your most favorite thing.
Right.
So yeah, when I was never gonna work there, going into college, and that's why I went, and
Right.
things just kind of worked out that way, and I enjoy it. It's there's always something to learn, which keeps it interesting.
Yeah.
And I like helping people. I always have.
That's
And
awesome.
so and I like cars, so it's kind of
A
full circle.
win-win
Yeah, that
all the
makes
way
sense.
around.
Yeah.
Right. So
You okay, Brandon?
Yeah.
Do you need a cough?
I'm not gonna do it. I was gonna do it just for you, but I'm not going to. You want me to do it?
he's not nervous anymore. He's not
That's
nervous.
it.
There's a whole long story behind this. Brandon, the first time we interviewed Brandon, or we had a podcast with Brandon, he gives this like little weird cough. I guess he was nervous, so he gives this little weird cough. So David,
He cleared his throat. That's all he was
Yeah.
doing. He was clearing his throat. But he did it before. Everything he said. And he would say, and I'm like, well, Brandon, what kind of, well, and then he would go on this thing. And so I'm like, I should edit this out. And so I sent it to him, and I'm like, hey, I got to edit these out. This is taking forever. Like, before everything he says. Well, and I cut and cut. And so I sent it to him. And then he forwards it to,
let's be real. What he sent to me is he cut it out, but he cut every single one of them and put them in succession, back to back to back. So when you hit play,
there was like
Brandon,
3. It was like 7 seconds.
So he
Okay.
sends it to me with the title of Brandon's Sex Call.
Sex call, yes.
No.
Yes,
He
yes.
sends it to him, and then he pretends to be super pissed. And this
I
was
forgot about
like,
that.
yeah, that was the funny thing. So the podcast is brand new. We just, I was happy to have him on. He's got a decent sized YouTube channel, and I'm like,
I've actually
you
seen
know,
a couple episodes.
so we're these peons that have Brandon Dills on, and I didn't know him that well. So I sent it to him. He forwards it. He's just sending me screenshots like, dude, he's so pissed. And I'm like, what? And so he starts messaging me. He's like, I come on your podcast and this is what you do to me? Like, I'm like, oh man. And I got so pissed at him. And he calls me. He's just laughing. He's like, we're just messing with you. I'm like, are you serious?
Oh, jerks. So you just started a shop, right?
Yes.
And just started your very own shop. Tell us a little bit about it.
So, Jarhead, it's been, I guess, going on 2.5 years. And it grew to a point where I needed more space besides working on the house. So I leased a warehouse. As soon as I leased the warehouse, started having shops be like, oh, instead of you coming here, we'll just start sending you to customers. And it just kept growing and growing. And I was like, well, if I'm going to be doing it, might as well just start a totally separate thing. So
Right.
now it's Jarhead Diagnostics LLC, but then I've also got Small Town Automotive Technologies as the shop. So
That's pretty cool. So I think it's kind of neat because you had the opportunity to have some information before you started the shop, right? Like you talked to a couple coaches, you got some information about how to run a business first.
yes,
And I think it's really neat
For a
because
repair shop. You already had it.
yes,
yeah, but you kind of had an idea going into this, how to start this
correct.
and a way to be profitable. What's your takeaway from that? Because that's one of the big things that I think about a lot. A lot of technicians go and they want to start a shop, but they don't know how to run a business. So you kind of had a leg up. What's your thoughts now that you've had that opportunity?
So business coaches, or even if you can't afford the business coach right off, you need to start networking with other repair facilities, good repair facilities, not just whatever ones.
Right.
Cash. That's the biggest thing. If to be honest with you, if I didn't have Jarhead cash flowing small town wouldn't be anything because it takes a lot of cash to get it going.
Yeah.
And you don't think about it, but it's, your RO systems and the lift, compressors, and just all the stuff that whenever you're a technician, you're like, it's just here and you don't even think about the cost of it. And then
I just need, that's
Yeah,
all it means to you. Like, I just need this. I just need that.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, well, where's the money going to come from
Yep.
for all that?
That's up quick. You just
Oh,
all of
yeah.
a sudden you spent $25,000, $30,000. You didn't realize you were going to spend it.
Yeah, 100%. Like if I didn't already have the building lease, like we could just talk finances like that, even if it's a cheap building at $1,500 a month, then it's $3,000 to get into it for the first month because you got to put your deposit down first month. You want to lift, there's $3,000. Even if you get a used one, you got to have it installed. And
Right.
then compressor.
The electrical.
Yep, electrical. Now, granted, like I rewired my house and my building and stuff, so all the electrical in the building, like I redid for the lift, so that kind of saved me there. But if you don't know what you're doing, then
Right.
you're out a lot of money to get started.
Yeah, especially if you're leasing somewhere, they may not let you do that.
Yeah. Well, don't get me started. I'll go on a rant. I got very mad at my last leaser. So
Really?
yeah. So he on the lease, he said, you can't drill into the concrete without permission. It's like, okay. So I was there for 3-4 months, drilled into or I asked permission, can I put a lift in? He's like, oh yeah, that's fine. Well then, small town, it like kind of expanded past where that building was, which you went to the building. It wasn't really conducive for a functional shop.
I agree.
So we found another building. I kind of approached the guy I was leasing it from. I was like, hey, can I either lease the entire building? Because remember, it's 2 sections. I was like, can I lease the entire building or can I get out my lease? He said, well, I'll let you out of your lease since you're growing. How about he charged me for drilling into the concrete?
You're kidding.
No.
he gave you permission. We talked about that before you
Correct.
did it.
And I had, text message and email proof where he was like, yeah, you can drill. But whenever I got my security deposit back, he charged me $300 for drilling into the concrete. I was mad. Like, and it was almost to one of those things where I was going to be spiteful and take him to court. Like, I'm not going to get any money out of it, but it was just one of those, you mess with me, then I'm just going to waste your
I
time.
mean,
they
what
always
was
do
the
that
point
kind
Yeah.
of stuff, though.
What was the point of charging you for? I mean, like, you want me
Exactly.
to go back
It
and
was such an
box it for
arbitrary
you?
dollar amount.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, $300. Like, what are you going to do with that?
Yeah.
Right.
And the funny thing was, he was even going to buy that lift from me. He's like, I might just have you leave the lift. Would you sell it to me? I was like, that's fine. And then he's like, never mind, I want a different one. But then he charges me for.
That's
like,
crazy.
oh,
That's crazy.
that's today's times though.
It is. It is. So, something else that I thought was really unique about your situation is me and you, I think, have talked about this before, but when you started your shop, you didn't automatically go bottom of the barrel,
No.
right? You didn't race right to the bottom and say, I got to be cheaper than everybody else to be able to start the shop. You said, no, what do I need to charge?
Correct.
And you started there. So, I was talking to a shop owner just the other day. They started just a few months ago, and they're like, hey, I'm thinking $50-$60 an hour. I'm thinking, if I charge way less than everybody else, I'll get a lot of business. And I get that some people, especially a technician going into this, can be afraid of charging what they need to charge. They don't see the value in what they do. But you started above everybody else, or right at it at least.
So in my town, as far as the independent repair facilities, I'm probably one of the more higher end as far as gross profit margins on parts and
Mhm.
labor. Like most of the shops are sub $100 an hour. I'm 115 for Asian domestic, 155 for Euro and diesel.
Right.
And then, our parts margins. There's a lot of shops in the area that like 10-15% markup, not margins, just
Markups.
markup is
Yeah.
like 10. And it's how do you stay in business? But
You don't. I mean, they do. They're still here. I don't
Yeah.
know why.
They do. They just won't be able to keep up with technology.
yeah. And so like, I had Jarhead going. So whenever I decided to open small town, I approached my brother. He's kind of hating his job, and it's like, you want to come be partners in the small town? And he's trying to learn all that because he's coming into the auto industry, and he's like looking at the prices like, oh my God. But then I've slowly, like, I've been taking care of the books and the financials and stuff because I didn't want to overwhelm him from the get-go of here's running a business, here do service advisor. But he's been slowly kind of reading into the books, and he's realizing why we're charging what we're charging. Because if you want to be a successful or even have a halfway decent business, you have to charge appropriately, or why even do it? Because all you got is just a job.
Exactly.
You're-
Exactly. That's exactly
you own your
right.
job is all it is.
Yeah, a very stressful job.
Yeah.
A very miserable job.
Yeah.
If you're in that situation. And we heard you have a conversation just a little bit ago. I'm sure you've heard this conversation before. Somebody asked you, I guess it was your brother called and said, hey, should I remove this testing?
Yeah.
And absolutely not. No, we don't remove testing.
Yeah. So like I said, he's still like, I'm very, very good customer service. I'm still he's learning the auto industry side of it. And that was one of the things is on our brake inspections, I told him from the get go, I was like, if we do a brake inspection, and they do the brakes like right then or within before we put it together, we can pull the brake inspection back. But if they, hem haw around, they don't want to do it, then no, they get charged. And so that was him asking. He's like, how are we supposed to pay the tech for the brake inspection? I was like, well, did you put the car back together and get it out? He's like, yeah. It was like the next day. I was like, no, then, they still get charged for it because we did the work for them. And then they wanted to, not approve it right away. We can't be liable just because the customer wanted to think about it. So
yeah, definitely. So Johnathan, you're kind of from the outside looking in. You've been in this your whole life. What advice would you give this dude who's just kind of firing up and getting started?
Just stick to your values and your core beliefs and where you need to go, and don't let others degrade that. This industry can burn people up, and it's it doesn't make sense to own your own business if you're not making money.
yeah.
So
100%.
We've been in industry, and this is something I've worked on a lot with my dad. That's very old school in mentality and wants to take care of people, and he's the last person you want to write service because he'll help people out, but you got to make money. I mean, otherwise you're not going to stick. You're not going to keep up with the technology, and it's rapidly increasing, more so than it ever has, in my opinion. And you can't keep your employees the good employees unless you're charging appropriately. You can't provide the benefits. You can't provide the pay packages.
Yeah.
And it's, last month's prime example at our shop. We did $140,000 in sales, and I think our net was $700 because we had several nasty comebacks, not because of an issue we did, but because of parts and the way that industry is right now. And so we had a lot of pro bono work. And if we weren't charging what we were, then
You'd have felt it.
That would have sucked.
Yeah, I mean, we're in that right now. We put a transmission in a Tacoma 2 weeks ago, and we're about to have to warranty that out. Transmission was bad, harsh downshifts afterwards, and I kind of use that as like a teaching lesson to my brother. I was like, look, this is why we charge what we're charging, because even if for whatever reason, whenever we warrantied out from who we bought the trans from, and they don't pay for our labor, we're still having to pay the technician again to do it. We're still having to pay for the fluids or whatever. And so if we didn't charge appropriately to begin with, we would now be in the negatives on this job versus breaking even or still being slightly ahead.
Yeah.
And so,
and you also have your opportunity cost.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
you're warranting that. You're taking care of the customer. You're not charging them
correct.
because the part failed. But what would that technician bill out per hour while he's doing something that you're not getting paid for?
Yeah.
So you have all those costs in regards to, and that's what a lot of technicians that think that, well, the owner's just raking it in, and that's what I'm going to go start my own business. And those, a lot of the times they fail because they don't have that business mindset,
Acumen,
or they don't have the training for it, or there's a lot of good technicians that have started shops that have failed because they've always thought or had that mentality, I can do it better, I can charge less, or I can, he's making too much money. And granted, there's owners that are doing that, and those aren't the good shops, and they'll eventually have what's coming to them. But you gotta make that profit, otherwise it's.
Yeah, I mean, and I think in some ways we spent so much time subsidizing the repair for the clients. We're not charging what we're supposed to charge, and if the multitude of shops do that, it affects everybody.
Yeah.
Right. And so that's part of the reason the podcast exists, is because we want to help bring the industry up as a whole. We want people to hear that message, like, dude, you're killing yourself for nothing. Right. And one thing that I would ask you is like, I'm a dad. Right. And one day I think, hey, do my kids want to run my shop? And here you are, you're kind of taking over for dad. And I think that hearing you talk about this, almost like, man, dad loved his clients, he loved his people, but he wasn't making any money. He was fighting the continual uphill battle. Now, and I know a lot of people know this, but my family owns a business. You've been there. And so that was something we went through. There's 3 of us brothers, and it was all kind of like, well, do we want to do that? We've watched mom and dad work, 80, 90, 100-hour weeks for 25, 30 years. Do we really want to be in that situation that we're going to be there, And so when you start to see the business profitable, that's when you get the kids involved and they want to come in and be part of it, is when the business is profitable, right? If they see you kill yourself over the business, nobody in their right mind would want to do that,
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, that's where I was at a couple of years ago before I started doing more management classes and more figuring out the business side of it rather than just get the cars in, get them out, take care of the customer. The shop has made more profit in the last 4 years than it made in 30.
Wow, that is crazy.
In net.
It's impressive. Yeah.
That is crazy.
Well, I got a
We
hot.
better let him get back to class, though.
Yeah, I do need to keep learning.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, we'll let you get back to class.
All right. Thanks,
Good
guys.
meeting you, buddy. Thanks for being on the show.
Yeah, no problem.